Nobody that I know of in my field uses the so-called scientific method. In our field, it's by the seat of your pants. It's leaps of logic. It's guesswork.
Don't see the curvature of the earth. That stuff is whack.
Globebusters taking over. Bye bye moonlight and rover. NASA so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Globebusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster. But the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. Get the shovel for the space hubble, piecing up the puzzle. Need a burst your bubble, evil gonna crumble, yeah? Sit down, be humble, got the ball, you better fumble. You'll get mad, cause at this fight I'm about your uncle.
And then they call me the liar. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable the pathetic techniques that they have to use to prove their heliocentric model.
Vibes at the president, Jeran got the evidence. Arrow slaying Jesuits and Zack is evident. That the earth electric and it's resonant. Your residence is heavens and I hope to settle in like some sediment. If we so wrong, why they lying to discredit it? That's not too intelligent. That's a guy not in court, but we ain't really in the settlement. It's time to awaken from the pseudoscience sedatives.
Globebusters taking over. Bye bye moonlight and rover. NASA so mediocre. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is. Globebusters taking over. Gotta ride this roller coaster. But the truth is getting closer. Sorry, but your ball is dead. But your ball is.
Inner World Productions.
Welcome to Globebusters. So we are in season 12, episode 6. Mainstream moves towards electric gravity. Should be pretty interesting. What a shocker. Flat Earthers are right again. We're on X, we're on Rumble, we're on Rockfin, we're on YouTube. If you want to support the stream, Ko-fi.com/Globebusters. And the goal is pinned in the YouTube chat. Go follow us on X as well, if you don't mind. All right, cool. Let's go ahead and introduce who's here right now. We might have more people pop on throughout the show, but we have my boy Zack from Good Times from All. What's going on, brother?
Hey, Austin, man. Yeah, what a week. It's been wild. I think I kind of predicted what was going to happen when we did our predictions. I predicted Trump to win and not really a whole lot of, civil unrest. I figured there'd be a bunch of people melting down in disbelief, and man, I've seen a lot of those videos. They're not even fun to watch anymore. Like for the first day, but it's just sad seeing how manipulated these people were by, the propaganda. It's crazy. All the people thinking that all these rights are going to be gone and this and that, and I don't know. It's wild. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy environment.
What's it like down there in Florida? Did you guys have a lot of signs out in the yards and stuff like that in that area?
Yeah. Everyone's pro-Trump, and then we'll restate it's like all Republicans, like 85% Republicans.
See, we're a Republican here in South Carolina, but you don't see any signs of either side, really. There's of anything. People don't really wear their politics on their sleeves around here as much. I know up north it was like that. I was up in Indiana earlier in the week, and I just couldn't believe all the stuff that was still up. Yeah, it was wild.
So we got a pretty interesting show today. Basically, the mainstream is starting to come out and talk about these major changes. Oh, major discovery. We just discovered this that we've overlooked that plays a crucial role in gravity. Something as fundamental as gravity. Oh, we just discovered that maybe gravity's nothing like what we said whatsoever. And we're going to get into it, but what a coincidence. Once again, the flat earthers are correct. We've been saying that for years. I remember a conversation I had with Bob on Globebusters years ago. He was asking me to kind of speculate what I thought that they were going to do in terms of like mainstream science and their kind of gradual progression to concession. And I was like, I think that eventually they're going to have to update the model. I don't think they may not completely absorb flat Earth, but what they'll do is kind of run this cover where they'll update the model to it being an electric universe. And sure enough, here we are, right? It's starting to happen. And it's hilarious because all these people that have gaslit all the flat earthers this whole time, because really flat earthers is just this term that kind of brands people, but it's a group of people that don't just blindly believe consensus propaganda that's fed to the masses, right? So we researched the claims about where we live and they don't add up. And we found out that 99% of the public don't understand any of it, don't know anything about the details of what they believe in. You couldn't pay them money to even tell you the basics of it, and that's quite literally true. I went around the United States offering $100 to $200 for people to answer like elementary level questions about the mainstream heliocentric globe model. No one could get the money. It was like a year and a half of me going to every major city in the United States, and it wasn't like everyone was just ignoring me. People just couldn't win the money. But yet how they all act, and they do this with everything, right? With big pharma, right? Every subject, they mock you, they ridicule you, they act like you're stupid, they all laugh and point at you together. It's like this mob mentality, like low level groupthink or whatever. So long story short, there's a group of people that were like, you know what, I should look into what it is that I believe, right? Because it's kind of weird that I have this like strongly held belief and I don't know what it is. And then when you really start to look into it and kind of test it and try to verify, you find out, oh, this doesn't add up at all. Now, the second layer to all of that's very interesting and adds context is that the idea that the majority of people have in their mind in terms of this model and this belief system and this cosmology, it's actually this archaic elementary propaganda. So almost everyone will tell you like, oh yeah, I know what gravity is. It's a force that pulls you down to the earth. And they may know the phrase mass attracts mass, but that as anyone on this channel probably knows, that's not even remotely close to the mainstream theory or model at all, right? That's been thrown away for over a century, but almost all of them think that, and they're like, oh, you don't believe in gravity, ha ha ha, and they'll drop something and they don't even know what they're talking about. Now, flat earthers have been like, okay, let's try to figure out what's really going on. Like, okay, this idea of gravity keeps on not working, keeps being refuted, and doesn't add up to the evidence at all. But we do know everything's electric, and we know that everything's magneto-reactive, so it seems like everything is really just fundamentally seeking equilibrium, and the primary variables are that everything's electric. And now the evidence is overwhelming that there's an ether. So we have dielectricity, or what people call electrostatics, magnetism, and electricity. And of course, electricity being the hybrid of magnetism and dielectricity. And we have an ether. And so whatever we're seeing in the sky, all of these movements, they're fundamentally going to be electric or magnetic in nature. And we've been saying this forever. I was saying it for years and just mocked and now the mainstream is starting to come out and inch towards these things. And what will happen is all those people that said they knew that mass attractive massing was a definitive fact, it was a law, it had been proven, you're so stupid. Anyone that denies that is just a science denier. Oh my gosh, don't breed, don't reproduce, blah, blah, blah. Those same, and we're like, no, like we said, everything's electric. They're going to end up having to change gravity towards something that's electric. And blah, blah, blah. They're like, no, you have no idea what you're talking about. Those same people will turn around when they start to make these new claims and say, oh, well, yeah, that's not like what you guys were saying, though. That's what they're going to.
And then they'll say, oh, we knew that all along, because that's not what you were saying.
Yeah.
We thought you meant this. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to say, like, oh, well, that's how science works, stupid flurf, but that's not what you guys said. No, it's exactly what we said. And so we're going to get into it. So I want to start the show by playing a video I came across a couple days ago. Shout out to Essie on Discord. He pointed this out to me. And so I want to remind everyone this point I've been making a lot the last few months. So I say, if there's a kinematic and dynamic equivalence, but geocentrism wouldn't require dark matter or dark energy, don't you agree that at the least a geocentric model is 96% more viable. In very simple terms, the illusion that we're in the center, the claim that it's an illusion requires the claim that the universe is accelerating and expanding in all directions. Therefore, there has to be some energy or force that's causing it to do that, but they can't find it anywhere, so they just call this dark energy. And then we do have energy in a vacuum, and they said, okay, well, maybe it's that energy that's in the quote-unquote assumed vacuum of space, but it was off by 10 to the 120th power. So it's just called dark energy. No one can find it. No one can explain it, but it has to be there to keep the model alive. And then when it comes to gravity, it's simple. It's proportionate mass. You have a certain amount of mass. You have a certain amount of gravity. And of course, relativity says it's the bending and warping of space-time. So when we looked out into the sky further and further, got better telescopes, these telescopic observations showed that the theory didn't work at all. Right, and you go all the way back to 1933. Fritz Zwicky, he observed the Coma cluster, a cluster of galaxies, should have had a certain gravitational field, a certain strength of that field to keep the cluster together, right, to prevent the galaxies from escaping the cluster. And it only had 1% of the mass needed according to gravity. So what did they do? They plugged in dark matter. If you combine dark matter and dark energy, according to mainstream cosmological model, that makes up 96% of the universe, like 95.5 or whatever.
And a lot of things were also changing at this time, like the distances and size. They couldn't make it work even while, trying to reverse engineer all this stuff. It just couldn't, the math didn't work. So they had to come up with all this dark energy and dark matter and nonsense. Because even with the ability to, move the scale, like Walter Bislin's calculator, with the refraction, they had a scale like that, but it still couldn't make it work.
So similar to how people throw like quantum around a lot, like people say dark matter, dark energy, I think it makes them sound smart. And they say, that's how science works. Science doesn't know everything. It's always the pursuit of knowledge, blah, blah, blah. No, science doesn't work like that at all. If you have a theory and then you go to test the theory and you make observations that are directly refute the theory, and you predict set amount of mass and only 1% of it's there, and it's physically impossible for your theory to be true. Science does not add some magical, imaginary, undefined terms that can't be verified or even observed at all. Can't even be defined. You're saying we can't see it, we can't observe it, we can't actually find it, we can't prove it's there. You can't even tell me what it is that we're supposedly trying to observe in the first place. That isn't how science works. You just keep that Band-Aid there and keep claiming your theory is true. Now it's been over a century. That's actually the opposite of science. That's scientism. It's effectively a religion, requires blind faith, and makes everything unfalsifiable. Now, obviously, I'm going to talk fast stage. So what is important about this, though, is I've been making this point because I think that any intellectually honest person that's actually in pursuit of truth will have to acknowledge the validity in this point. And it's very obvious. It's just very obvious that we are correct. It's very obvious that time will only further show that we are correct. History will reflect and say that this side was correct. And they will look at this period of time of propagandized, government-funded pseudoscience as one of the most inept points of human history. They will literally look back and be like, I cannot believe that many people, that majority of people were that stupid. And dark matter is a good example of that. And so what I've been trying to point out to people is, well, there are many far superior models. Now, let's just break it down. This is not actual science when we're talking about what happens in the sky. We can't go independently verify anything that's happening there. We can't directly manipulate an independent variable to prove a cause and effect relationship. We're just limited to observations. All we can do is look out in the sky and try to figure out what's going on with observations alone. So it's limited to quote unquote theoretical science. Now, it's not a scientific theory, right? It's not technically a scientific theory according to the actual scientific method and the empirical method within, but quote unquote theoretical physics, that's referring to this idea of looking up in the sky and trying to figure out what's happening. What's that's evolved into is people think we know for sure what's happening, or at the least we know certain things for sure that's happening, the cause, and the main thing is gravity. So although we cannot definitively prove what's going on, we can definitely disprove claims about what's going on with just the observations alone. And I'm saying that to point out that it's very obvious a major solution to these problems. For one, if you have dark energy, this is the preface for the video we're going to watch. It's maybe 9 minutes long. If you have dark energy, supposedly at the cosmological constant, which is, of course, the energy required, the antecedent requirement for the Hubble constant. That's the rate at which the universe supposedly accelerates, expands. If you have this requirement of dark energy to explain why it looks like we're in the center of the universe, right? Well, if we just are in the center of the universe, you don't have to come up with some theoretical explanation as to why it looks like that, even though it's not the case. It just is the case. So if you remove that assumption that we're flying through space and stuff, then dark energy is out the window. And if you don't assume that quote unquote gravity is the cause of proportionate mass, meaning the amount of mass gives you a certain amount of gravity, then you don't have the dark matter problem. And I use the analogy of if you have two magnets that are identical in size, identical in mass, they can have significantly different strengths, right? You can have the same exact magnet, exactly the same size, exactly the same mass. One can be 1,000 times stronger than the other one, right? Now
Made
this
out of
would
the same
this
material,
answers
right?
and yeah, literally just about like coherency.
Mhm.
So this immediately could fix all of these problems. You looked out at the coma cluster, saw it only had 1% of the mass needed. Well, there isn't a certain amount of mass needed. There's a certain magnetic field strength needed. So now when you look at the coma cluster, it doesn't really matter how much mass is there, right? We're figuring out how strong that magnetic field is. And of course, they just so happen to take the exact same geometry of all magnetic fields, and we see giant spiral galaxies. It's just like the vortex seen in a Farrell image of a magnetic field. It's all exactly the same geometry. It is abundantly obvious that it is all magnetic and electric, which you can't have one without the other. You cannot have the magnetic without the dielectric, right? So everything's intrinsically magnetic and electric when properly defined. Now, that's where you get the different types of magnetism, right? Ferromagnetism, paramagnetism, et cetera, et cetera. Everything that exists falls in one of those categories.
Yeah, there
All
is
right.
nothing outside of it. We've never
Exactly.
found anything outside of those three categories: para, ferra, and dia.
Exactly. So this is just again to repeat the point. It's like the reason that modern cosmology is in such a problem, such a terrible state, like this standstill, pigeonhole, can't make progress, cosmological crisis, as it has been coined by the mainstream, is because they're religiously devoted to this idea that gravity is based on mass and it has a direct proportionate relationship with mass, right? So they have no choice but to just have major holes and discrepancies in their model because they have internalized this religious belief as if it's true. Now, I've been saying for a while, like they're going to get rid of that, right? And one of the things they're trying to do is modify Newtonian dynamics, still based on mass, but to try to get rid of the dark matter problem, they're trying to move around and modify Newton. And there are hundreds of different theories about that, but that also doesn't really work. But it's an acknowledgement, it's a mainstream acknowledgement of how wrong relativity is. So when people tell you we know relativity is true and it's no scientifically proven and verified theory, or that isn't even true in the mainstream at all, or you wouldn't have thousands of scientists proposing modified Newtonian dynamics. That is literally an acknowledgement that it isn't working and that dark matter isn't working, that assumption isn't working, and that the evidence is going against it. Later on, I'll actually bring up a quote from a professor, an astronomy professor in Australia, who's pointed out that actually not only do we not have evidence of what dark matter is or that it's there for sure, we've actually falsified it with sigma phi confidence, which is 99.99999% confidence that it's been falsified. And in terms of the way that they actually quantify that in science, quote unquote, you couldn't get any higher because they always leave open the window, right? That it could not be conclusive. So he's saying we know dark matter doesn't exist. It's been falsified with sigma 5 confidence. And he brings up like dark matter halos and the collision of different galaxies, how they don't slow down, blah, blah, blah. If there's actually dark matter there, we can't be making the observations that we are. All right. All that to be said, now look what they're coming out saying in the mainstream. And I find it hilarious, but obvious. And this is going to be a tough pill to swallow. And they'll put this off as long as they can. They'll say, oh, that's just one person or whatever. This is NASA space news. But they will deny this. And they will say, oh, that's not what you were saying. it quite literally is exactly what I've been saying. Whatever it is that's going to be proposed to try to fix these major problems in cosmology is going to have to get rid of the limitation of mass, the proportionate mass. I have said that 300, 400 times everywhere I go, all the time, and I've just been using that magnet analogy to break it down over and over and over and over. And it isn't just me. Tons of flat earthers have been saying this, right? Now let's see what the mainstream is now saying. And tell me if you think it's a coincidence. So just let me know for sure that you can hear this.
Yes.
Okay, Fair Use Act. We are pausing, discussing this on our own. We are not just hijacking or stealing the content. This is protected under fair use. We are allowed to take someone else's content and commentate it. Okay, so let's check it out. If you want to jump in, just jump in. I'll pause it.
Cool.
Imagine a universe where gravity doesn't depend on mass, a concept that challenges our core understanding of physics. Dr. Richard Liu, a professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Alabama in Huntsville.
Let me just again point out that this is NASA Space News. NASA Space News. All right.
Dr. Richard Liu, a professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, has introduced a groundbreaking theory suggesting that gravity could exist without mass, potentially explaining certain gravitational effects without needing dark matter. This theory echoes a concept from 1932 when Dutch astronomer Jan Oort proposed missing mass as a way to explain how galaxies hold together. Liu's theory could eliminate the need for dark matter. Dark matter. This theory echoes a concept from 1932 when Dutch astronomer Jan Oort proposed missing mass as a way to explain how galaxies hold together. Liu's theory.
And just a reminder, when again, 1933, the next year, Fritz Zwicky then actually makes the observation and sees that in fact there's only 1% of the mass needed in the coma cluster. They literally called it missing mass, and they plugged in the 99% that was missing, and it was just called missing mass for many, many years. All that's changed is they updated that term to dark matter. So now it has this like mystical idea as if it's something real.
Dutch astronomer Jan Oort proposed missing mass as a way to explain how galaxies hold together. Liu's theory could eliminate the need for dark matter. In this video, we'll dive into this fascinating theory, explore its implications, and discuss what it could mean for the future of our understanding of the cosmos. Traditionally, gravity is understood as a force arising from mass. Isaac Newton's law of universal gravitation describes it as an attractive force between two masses, proportional to their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity further refined this understanding by describing gravity as the curvature of spacetime caused by mass and energy. In this framework, massive objects like stars and planets warp the fabric of spacetime, creating the gravitational effects we observe. However, observations of galaxies and galaxy clusters have revealed gravitational effects that cannot be explained by visible mass alone. Stars at the edges of galaxies rotate at speeds that, according to Newtonian mechanics, should cause them to fly apart. To account for this discrepancy, scientists propose the existence of dark matter, an invisible substance that exerts gravitational force, holding galaxies together. Despite extensive efforts,
So you hear the definition. Let's hear the definition of it again.
propose the existence of dark matter, an invisible substance that exerts gravitational force, holding galaxies together.
An invisible substance that exerts gravitational force holding galaxies together.
And they can't even tell you what what gravitational force is.
An invisible substance. Now, like, think about this. There's an idea, a framework that's been proposed for a long time. It's called ether. And it is not visible in the visible light spectrum, and it has physical substantive qualities. It's a primary substrate, and all phenomena comes from it. It is the foundational framework for electrical field theory, the entire electrical field theory that then gave us the entire electrical grid that we have to this day. And if you look at any of the fatherheads of said electrical field theory, they of course all said that there had to be an ether, whether that be Nikola Tesla, Maxwell, Charles Proto Steinmetz, and the list goes on and on and on. Oliver Heaviside, Jeff and Minko.
Yeah, the ones that made all the electronic components that we use in everything today, all technology, came from these gentlemen. And they all say the same thing. There has to be a background medium. It has to be there.
And Tesla said that it was a requirement that he applied the understanding of an actual substantive physical medium with mechanical properties called an ether for him to make all of his discoveries and to create all of his inventions. And that it was that fundamental understanding that allowed him to do any of it. And then he went on to say that if you were ever going to try to explain the motion, celestial motion observed, you're going to have to first acknowledge the ether and the primary and fundamental role it plays in the phenomena. When you get into Maxwell's equations, you're using classical wave mechanics. You're using a medium that is moving, oscillating, vibrating, has a frequency, has perturbations, has displacements. It is an actual medium, a movement within it. That's how we still define it to this day, as in that's how we actually describe it. That's how we describe it. Without utilizing this fundamental understanding, we don't have anything in terms of understanding electricity, creating technology with it, understanding magnetism, understanding light, understanding static electricity. Now, particle physics has basically usurped that understanding, and they've started inventing, just like dark matter on the cosmological scale, they have virtual photons on the quantum scale, right? So it's like, oh, the magnetism, that doesn't make sense if we believe in it's the movement of these electrons, and those are physical charge carrying particles of matter that are 99.99999% empty space and whatever, right? All this nonsense they say about electrons. When they assume the electron, the photon, all these tons, a pseudoscientific ton, their math doesn't work, doesn't match the observations at all in the lab. They make up virtual photons. This is the same thing. And all that to say, we have been saying this the whole time. If you don't have some philosophical, effectively religious bias in terms of understanding the nature of this realm, the nature of cosmology, then it is abundantly clear, the evidence is overwhelming, that there is an ether, the earth is stationary, it is the preferred frame, there is an absolute frame, there's a drift within this ether around the earth, and this is just abundantly clear. And everything's electric, everything's magnetic, fundamentally, and that those are modalities of that background. We've been saying this for years. We've been saying it over and over and over. No, you keep saying dark matter. Dude, there's a substantive background, and everything's magnetic within that. The way you're trying to understand the sky, the claims you're making, is like a caveman coming along with a clipboard who's never even written a language before, trying to pretend that they're about to explain the entirety of existence. And you're saying, like, oh, there's invisible stuff up there. There must be invisible stuff up there that works just like the visible stuff, but it's not the ether. I can't tell you what it is, but it's up there, and there must be a magical invisible energy as well. And it's like, why are you not acknowledging what we already know? There's a background. So the answer is because if there is in fact a background called the ether, you cannot have the earth moving through space. We have empirical evidence that has refuted it. All right, that should be ample amount of commentary, not to get struck here.
It's easy to start talking when you talk about something you're passionate about, isn't it?
Yeah.
We did a show on an introduction to electricity Thursday night on Globebusters Tech, and just went over Walter Lewin's first lecture. And I try to keep them around an hour because I have to get up and do a show at 5 a.m. the next day. And it went almost 2 hours, just because you get on something that you genuinely love talking about. It's hard to shut yourself up. Yeah. So no, man, just go. I love hearing it. I love the passion you have on this topic.
Flat Earth Dave, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
David.
get my audio set up.
All right, cool. Take your time, and you can add an avatar if you'd like. just you want me to keep playing the video? You got something you want to say?
No, I'm good. I'm just tuning in, so I have to catch up. Just go on
Okay,
without
cool.
me right now.
Cool. Just again, anybody wants to jump in, just interject. I'll pause it.
Gotcha.
Despite extensive efforts, dark matter has remained undetected, leading to ongoing debates and alternative theories. Enter Dr. Richard Liu's theory, which challenges the traditional mass-gravity relationship. Liu suggests that gravity can exist without mass through structures known as topological defects. These are regions in space where the properties of the universe change abruptly, potentially formed during phase transitions in the early universe. Liu proposes that certain shell-like topological defects, consisting of an inner layer of positive mass and an outer layer of negative mass, could create gravitational effects without net mass. This means that such structures could exert gravitational forces similar to those attributed to dark matter without containing any actual mass. This theory offers a fresh perspective on gravitational phenomena. By attributing unexplained gravitational effects to massless topological defects, Liu's work challenges the necessity of dark matter in explaining the dynamics of galaxies and clusters. If proven correct, this could revolutionize our understanding of gravity and the universe's structure. In conventional physics, gravity is a result of mass warping spacetime. Massive objects create a curvature in spacetime, and other objects move along these curves, experiencing what we perceive as gravitational attraction. This model successfully explains a wide range of phenomena, from the orbits of planets to the bending of light around massive objects, a phenomenon known as gravitational lensing. However, certain observations, such as the rotational speeds of stars and galaxies, suggest the presence of additional gravitational forces not accounted for by visible mass alone. This led to the dark matter hypothesis, proposing an unseen mass that exerts gravitational influence. Despite its explanatory power, dark matter has eluded direct detection, prompting alternative explanations. Liu's theory proposes a fascinating concept: massless shell structures as sources of gravitational effects. These shells are topological defects, with an inner layer of positive mass and an outer layer of negative mass, which together balance out to a net mass of 0. Remarkably, even without net mass, these shells can still generate gravitational fields. When a star lies within one of these shells, it experiences a gravitational pull toward the shell's center, closely mimicking the gravitational attraction produced by conventional mass. Liu explains, "The shells in my paper consist of a thin inner layer of positive mass and a thin outer layer of negative mass. While the total mass of both layers, as measured, is precisely 0, a star on this shell experiences a significant gravitational force, drawing it toward the shell's center. This mechanism could explain the flat rotation curves of galaxies, the observation that stars at the edges of galaxies rotate at similar speeds to those near the center."
But this is no longer quote unquote gravity. This is you're just taking like the vibratory nature of ether and you're invoking quote unquote gravity as an emergent property of the background. The vibratory nature of the background. That sounds a lot like what flat earthers say. What a coincidence.
Traditional models, this would require additional unseen mass, attributed to dark matter. Liu's massless shells could provide the necessary gravitational pull without invoking dark matter. Furthermore, these shell structures could account for gravitational lensing effects observed in galaxy clusters. As light passes through these shells, it would be deflected inward, mimicking the lensing effects typically attributed to dark matter. This offers a novel explanation for gravitational phenomena without relying on unseen mass. If gravity can exist without mass, it challenges foundational principles in physics and cosmology, potentially leading to a paradigm shift in our understanding of gravitational interactions and the universe's large-scale structure. This also intersects with other alternative gravity theories. For instance, modified Newtonian dynamics, EMOND, suggests adjustments to Newton's laws to explain galactic rotation curves without relying on dark matter. Similarly, emergent gravity theories propose that gravity arises from quantum information principles, potentially eliminating the need for dark matter. This theory, if proven correct, could drive innovation in observational technology, leading to specialized instruments designed to identify and measure these unique massless structures. Detecting massless shells may require highly precise sensors or detectors capable of capturing minute gravitational effects, potentially inspiring the next generation of observational tools in astrophysics. Furthermore, the theory invites new perspectives in fundamental physics and quantum mechanics. If gravity can exist independently of mass, this finding could challenge the way we connect gravity with quantum mechanics, spurring exploration into quantum phenomena like zero-point energy or even the foundations of quantum gravity. Such an approach might ultimately bring us closer to unifying relativity with quantum physics, edging science nearer to a comprehensive understanding of the universe's deepest laws. Thank you for watching. We hope.
So yeah, I just thought that was pretty funny.
They are really saying that it's magnetic without just coming out and saying, yeah, it's just, nothing to do with gravity. You don't even need this thing called gravity.
I mean, at the least, they're sitting they're sitting here saying massless gravity, bro. So
I'm going to be honest here and say I'm with at least half of the audience, and say it just sounds like a bunch of mindless BS to me, pseudoscience. And I didn't fully follow it. I didn't start from the beginning, but it just seems all ridiculous.
it is all ridiculous, but the point to take away is that major respected professors in the field are now proposing theories that claim gravity is massless and doesn't require mass. And this is what, for example, what I've been saying for so long, which is that it's not based on mass, right? Because it's just like you can have two identical size magnets, same exact mass, and one can be 1,000 times stronger than the other one. Everything's electric and magnetic. And this idea is such a major blow to the mainstream model. You would think if you have to go to a major change like that, now everything else is on the table again, right?
Well, yeah, couldn't everything be a lot closer then?
You would think so. Like the stuff that's been completely ignored, suppressed, censored, mocked, ridiculed, all these like people like us, all the stuff that we've been presenting and discussing as possible and presenting the evidence for, it's just, oh, you're so stupid. We know. Now you're going all the way back to the drawing board and fundamentally changing what you're claiming and throwing everything out. The fact that it's even proposed as something that can be entertained, the idea that gravity isn't based on mass, and that there's a massless version of gravity. Anytime there's this major quote unquote discovery or anomaly or update or theory that's proposed that's completely counter to the current model, how does that not immediately say, well, wait, so of course, if there's these other groups that have these ideas and this evidence that's been challenging it this whole time, we can't in good faith and intellectual honesty just continue to like gaslight them and mock them and ridicule them. We have to concede that obviously their idea is just as possible, if not more, because now we're just completely erasing the belief that we've shoved down everyone's throat and pretended was true, right? Like how is that not the normal reaction from anybody that hears it?
Isn't that what they always do? They're always constantly doing cleanup. They're everything. We expose the Georgia Guidestones, they blow up the Georgia Guidestones. We expose everything we expose, they just constantly change it. That's all they have. That's all they can do.
Yeah, and I feel like if someone is honest, they would have to say, wait, okay, this idea that I'm propagating, that we know what everything is and we've known for hundreds of years, and it's so archaic and such a regression for people to challenge it, that's just not true. It's fundamentally not true, right? Like you would have to be intentionally dishonest to not acknowledge that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think it's funny because I'm like so incredibly confident. I would bet my net worth into the next 20 years that the system, that even the mainstream will eventually have to acknowledge that gravity is not what they say it is at all. And it isn't this mass. And actually what I would bet, I won't bet anything on what the mainstream will or will not do, but what I would actually bet on is it's so obvious that the answer to what's going on up there, it isn't just based on how much mass is there at all. It just clearly isn't. That's why it doesn't matter how much mass you see, right? Like you still see crazy different strengths of some force that's causing everything to move, because regardless of what you think, obviously there is some type of force that's moving everything around. Everything's moving around because there's something going on, right? There's some type of force. And if in reality we know that everything's electric and everything's magnetic, what kind of leap do you have to make to think that all of a sudden when you look up in the sky, that's the exception? The exception is the sky for some reason.
Yeah, and I like how you gave it 20 years too, because sometimes it takes that long. There's so many people that are highly invested and have all their paper and research on these other things, and there's ego involved. People don't want to admit that they were wrong, and they spent their whole life talking about something that never even existed. So it may take a couple decades for it to become mainstream, but it's already out there. They open Pandora's box, and there are highly educated people thinking these thoughts and talking about it in the upper echelon circles. So it's only a matter of time, in my opinion. I think you're right, Austin.
I think the expansion of flat Earth knowledge is it called Moore's law with computer processing speeds? I think that the expansion of flat Earth is equal or greater than Moore's law.
I could see that.
What's so crazy is I guess I'm just kind of what Bennett always says is I think we just have to wait for those people to die. Like the people,
says that?
Robert Bennett, the PhD Robert Bennett.
Okay.
The geocentrist. He says, I think you just have these people that have devoted their whole life to pushing this narrative, and they could never conceivably walk it back. It's almost like you just have to wait for a lot of these people to die so that the younger generation can take over and fix it.
I don't think you have to wait for them to die, but yes, they're never gonna change their minds. But when the younger generation speaks up and enough intelligent minds speak out, showing the obvious truth, I think the transition is gonna just be a very fast transition, and I think we're very close to that point. Is it weeks away, months away, years away? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and he's definitely talking in terms of like mainstream academia anyway, right? He's talking like when can papers be published and stuff like that. And I think I agree with you that it's just much more about the general sentiment. But they've done such a good job of separating. Basically, it doesn't matter if if 99% of people think something, it doesn't matter because they're not the experts, right? They really push that with the pandemic. So it's like, oh, well, you just don't understand it. It doesn't matter if everyone realizes something's wrong. It's like, well, you're not the expert. So that's another part of it. They really push that. But anyway. All right, cool. We can move on to the next little thing. Cami sent me this. Pretty interesting. Quote, "It was there from the beginning, all along with gravity. NASA makes shocking discovery about Earth's electric field after years of searching." And this literally was put out today. Let's see what it says. "I thought that we knew everything there is to know. I thought we sent a car battery that's still sending signals back to the Earth out to space 30 years ago, and it's like tens of millions or hundreds of millions of miles away or something. That we're going all through the universe. We know what everything is. We know that the edge of the universe is 46 billion light years away. We know that a spoonful of a neutron star, 100 million miles away, weighs a quadrillion tons. Like, I thought we knew everything. Now NASA's coming out saying, "Oh, we just made a major discovery about the Earth's electric field that we completely overlooked and didn't know was there."
They'll tell you the electric field and the gas is on a planet that's 200 light years away. And we're still making discoveries today about our planet.
It's just insane. By the way, this is kind of how they'll show you a black hole here. You know what this actually looks like? A magnetic field.
It really does.
That's all that is. That's just a magnetic field. All right, let's see here. "A long-sought invisible force speculated over 50 years ago has finally been discovered, marking a relevant breakthrough in Earth science. Present since the planet's formation, this mysterious force has subtly existed all along gravity and magnetism, forming Earth's behavior in ways not before understood."
Understood by who?
Yeah. Religious scientism. "Though long hypothesized as a missing piece of natural phenomena, it had remained elusive until this moment. Its discovery bridges theoretical physics and observable reality, prompting new insights and reevaluations of models that already exist. This lately confirmed force proposes deeper interconnections within Earth's system, unveiling mysteries yet to be fully comprehended." They're now saying that there's a fundamental force that's electric in nature that's been completely disregarded. By the way, yeah, gravity, the way they define it, just isn't a real thing. Gravity isn't even a thing at all, actually. As far as I can tell, quote unquote, gravity is actually just the effect. It's an effect, a quantified effect. Right? It's an emergent property. It's an effect.
Yeah, they've never actually given a name for the force because they don't know what it is or how it works.
They can't even define force. They can't even define field. And it can't define energy. It can't define magnetism. And now they're going to tell me what the fundamental forces are. It's like the only one true field is magnetism. So if everything's electric and magnetic intrinsically, then whatever we see, whatever movement, displacement, equilibrium, like the process of seeking equilibrium that causes things to move around, right? Because everything's just moving around trying to find its equilibrium. All of that that's just all effects based on pressure mediating. It's all just an effect of something electric, something magnetic. So what they're going to do here, and this is obvious, everyone here could have predicted it. Once they start, the holes are so overwhelming and the quote unquote dissidents like ourselves start gaining more and more traction, and they just start getting, there's so many holes in their model. It's like Swiss cheese enough that they have to make major updates. They'll say, okay, so look, instead of saying we were wrong, they'll say, oh, look, there is this major thing we overlooked. There's this major thing we didn't know about. And it maybe exists also beside gravity that we know has to exist. That's what they're doing here. But of course, in reality, it's just some of these things that they're going to be acknowledging are real, and there is no gravity. And the way they're going to interpret it will be misguided because they have to fit it in with gravity rays.
Can I share a quick video real quick? Just like a minute.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see. There we go. Audio. Okay, this is fair use as well. This is Walter Lewin, MIT. This is why we got so many patents that came out of MIT. When Austin's saying that everything is electricity and magnetism, he is not blowing smoke at you. He is 100% serious and knows what he's talking about. What, Dave?
I'm hearing a little echo.
Yeah, did you
I'm
did you share your whole screen?
Yeah. Should
Yeah,
I
you
not
can-
do that? Okay.
I'll
yeah,
wait
yeah.
till you're done.
Try to share the no, it's gonna echo even the audio, I think. Try to share just like the Chrome tab. You have Chrome?
Yeah.
Yeah, share the Chrome tab and it'll share the audio, and then you can just maximize it. Once you're sharing the screen, you can maximize it and it'll still stay within the screen. So.
I've heard several people say that magnetism radiates and electricity vibrates. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but it sounds good.
Magnetism radiates and electricity vibrates.
Sort of, yeah. I can see what they're saying. Radial distribution radiates, of course, is like spherical. It's sort of like that, yeah. Right. It's diverging out from the
Something
center.
to think about.
around.
Yeah. I'll ponder on that one. Yeah, this would just be
Thank
like
you.
a minute, maybe or so. This is him explaining to his students what electricity and magnetism are responsible for. And the list is just amazing. Listen to this. And Thursday I was talking about when we were going over this, how if you're homeschooling your children, or really anything, if you're trying to share information with someone and you guys have a good back and forth, try and make it a little bit funny sometimes if you can. Add a little humor in there. That helps things stick. It helps people remember things. And he was great at it. Just an amazing teacher. But yeah, that list was just about anything you can think of. He said every chemical reaction in there. Every time you move a muscle, there's electricity controlling that, firing off. Seeing, thinking, breathing, everything. The sun. I mean, it's all electric. This whole place runs on electricity and magnetism.
Yeah, exactly. And like all molecular bonds are electrostatic. Like literally everything's electric. This is so interesting. Wait till you see where they go with this, bro. So here it says the field dubbed the polar wind describes how Earth's atmosphere escapes easily and rapidly above the north and south poles, quote unquote, and probably have played a role in shaping our planet's thin upper atmosphere. Scientists show it's as essential to our planet as gravity and the magnetic field. Now again, remember this is NASA, so they're obviously just fully pushing the propaganda fake version of Earth. But this is so funny. This field is so fundamental to understanding the way our realm functions. It's been here since the start alongside gravity and magnetism. Glenn Collison, that is the main investigator of endurance at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland, explained in an agency video, quote, even though it's being weak, it's incredibly relevant. It counters gravity and it basically lifts the skies up. Bro. What? So we're talking about potentially some flip of polarity up higher, something happening, some type of electric phenomena or field that's quote unquote countering gravity. Yeah, pretty interesting. I'll just read this here. Scientists consider the field begins roughly 150 miles above the surface, where atoms in the atmosphere are not together into negatively charged electrons and positively charged ions, which are 1,800 times heavier than electrons. Given their opposite electric charges, an electric field forms to tether them together, countering gravity's incessant pull and letting many particles escape into space in the operation. Wow, bro. Wow. Hydrogen ions sends an outward push from the field 10.6 times stronger than gravity, the researchers found. Oxygen ions, which are heavier than their hydrogen counterparts, were located to be getting a speed boost from the polar wind as well. It's like this conveyor belt lifting the atmosphere up into space. Due to polar wind is spurred by dynamics deep within Earth, scientists anticipate it to be present on other planets, taken into account, blah, 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 blah. So what's so funny? Like, oh, well, are we coming up with? We're coming up with updates to the model about like the air on the Earth and supposedly going into space. Well, yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. They're saying that there's this fundamental electric field that counters gravity that they've overlooked until just now.
How
Yeah.
many times have they passed through this thing?
Are you kidding me right
Wow. Wow.
now? Yeah. If people will swear up and down that they know something's 46 billion light years away or something.
You know the definition of a conspiracy theorist, Austin?
What is it?
Somebody that knows something before the general public knows it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's us.
That's a
Hey,
good.
slightly different topic. Have you seen the video on rainbows in the north versus the south?
No.
In the far north, Alaska, Norway, rainbows have huge upper arches. Where we are, they're mid-range regular rainbows, and in Antarctica, they're almost flat.
Wow.
Great-
Never.
I added a rainbows section on the FAQ page, bottom row. Scroll down, and it's the first. I have about 5 videos in there on rainbows, but the first one, the Founded Earth brothers did a video on it. Fascinating. Not exactly sure what it means, other than the
And
dome.
I've got some multiple rainbow pictures myself, all with the same camera from like up north and then down in Texas as well.
Take a look. I think
I'm
by
going
looking
to.
at a rainbow, you can figure out what latitude the picture was taken at.
Would that be the same with sundogs? Because sundogs are kind of different.
I don't know.
Like how big they are, maybe. Because I have one from up north, and it's a lot smaller than. But I don't know if people are zooming in, and I don't know their f-stop and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So.
The rainbow doesn't matter because you can just see the arc, the arch
I
compared to the
like that.
ground.
Mhm.
And it's fascinating.
You have a link?
It's just I mean I could pull up the video if you want.
Yeah.
Let me
It's up to you.
real quick. Yeah.
So how's it been going, Dave?
It's been going good. Been doing a lot of interviews, so that's good. And I'm getting ready for Anarchapulco this winter, which is going to be huge, as our president elect might say. Going to be huge.
So how have the interviews been going lately? Are they more flat earthers now? Like, or more people that are open to the idea?
So I've been going on a lot of. There's a. I don't want to say the name of the network, but there's a podcasting, networking network, and I've been reaching out to all different types of podcasts. And the one podcast, like, well, we're a podcast about addiction and recovering from addiction. And I pointed out how Flat Earth relates to that, and they had me on. Great show. The guy's like, this is amazing, and so I am going on a lot more shows that have never even considered Flat Earth, and those are kind of fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let me pull up my. How do I share this? I go Chrome. Sorry for the delay, people. Share. I understand. Window.
You just
There it
signed
is.
over the birthrights to your firstborn or something.
Okay. So can I include the second? Can I include the second on that? Do I need to say share with sound or anything? I guess we don't even need the sound. I'll just dictate. All right, so you guys can see this? You see it? I assume?
Yep.
To make it bigger?
Yeah, you can max it.
It's good?
Just max it.
I max it like that.
No, all the way. All the way it'll stay in your window.
I did it. I just hit the full screen.
Yeah, well now it doesn't work on your Mac for some reason. I don't know. Now it's saying click to exit full screen. That's all we see. So that's
All right.
fine. That's fine.
All right. So just if I jump forward. So here's a rainbow. Here's a rainbow in the rainbow in Alaska. And this is a rainbow in Australia. Here's one and another one in Alaska, but they go to here. There you go. Antarctica on the bottom, Australia in the middle, and Canada on the top.
Wow.
Interesting. It's interesting. I
That's
think a
pretty
little more research needs to be done. You know, people need to look at it, and we need people taking pictures of rainbows and marking where they're taken, and let's get some real data.
Yeah, it's getting to be that time where data can be collected, if people go out and do it. There's enough people that are waking up and seeing this stuff and interested right now. There's a lot of people looking around. And yeah, you could do it with your phone. I mean, as long as you get it, a lot of them have nice cameras on them now.
Hey,
But yeah,
can you guys talk for a second? I'll be right back.
yeah, yeah. If you see a rainbow, just snap a pic.
Snap a picture, and I could do it. I just don't have the time. Maybe somebody can volunteer, and I'll promote. Hey, send your pictures to so and so, collecting rainbow pictures, and let's categorize them. And just make a slideshow from latitude, and rainbow size, and see if it really correlates. It seems like it does from what I've seen. I was Googling around looking at rainbows in different areas, and farther north, they look taller. Farther south, they look flatter. I was talking
you could even research from the computer.
You can. A lot of people. I was on a TikTok live this morning, and one guy that lives in Australia, he's like, yeah, the rainbows here are really flat. I mean, they're very, very low all the time. So that's fascinating. So, stuff like that. And, my I don't even want to call it a theory anymore. I think I'm calling it proof at this point that satellites and Starlink are actually airplanes, commercial liners. One guy jumped on. He said that he lives in a remote area where there's no cell towers, there's no service, but he has a satellite phone and Starlink. And he says the service sucks on both of them, but sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it works, he can go on the plane tracking site and see that there's a plane in the area. He can watch it as that plane leaves his area. He loses service.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you just think about it.
There's so many planes all the time up there. Yeah, they can create a network.
Well, here in the north, there's never a point ever where there aren't any planes. But think about it. You need power, you need service, you need them everywhere in the sky. Well, airplanes, they're everywhere. They're everywhere where people are. There's always planes flying over, and it just works. I mean, if they're not doing it that way, they're being irresponsible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can't be the only one that's thought of this. I can't be.
So how many is it? How many on the app? Still
we're
growing.
at
206.
Still growing. It was. If I look right now, it is. And just for everyone knows, the friend finder is still offline for just a couple more days, and then it'll be back better than ever. We're at 206. If I could see 600, something like that.
Man, that's wild. That there's that many, willing to put their name out there and their location and all that kind of stuff. Flat earthers.
Yeah, 206, 638.
People are not hiding anymore. And what is that? 1/10 of 1% of the flat earthers, you think?
Maybe less. Who
Maybe
knows?
less, Yeah.
I just love that people are waking up, and something about this topic is once you see it, you never put it down. I mean, have you had hobbies in your life that you've grown past, right?
Oh,
that
yeah.
you just don't do anymore?
Mm-hmm. Bunches.
Yeah, and this one, you're never going to let it go because this is where you live. This is who you are.
Well, yeah, this is to me the most important truth, right? And in every religion, truth is very important. For a society to function properly, the truth needs to be told. And it's finally being told around us. And people are being more vocal. It's not being hidden as much. It is an apocalypse, greatest apocalypse ever. But you need the truth. And this is a truth that they cannot hide. That's why I made my YouTube channel. I had seen all these other conspiracies come and go. I mean, I've been doing this since before I graduated high school. I did my senior thesis on JFK assassination not being just Lee Harvey Oswald alone, you know? And this one, as soon as this one came out, I was like, I want to share this with people. This is the one that changes everything. You know, it does. My mom
Yeah.
she finally, she's known since 2015 when I started. I told her that I thought the earth was flat. And heading back home, she came and stayed for a month, and I was taking her back home up to Indiana. And she started saying, you know what? I don't think we went to the moon.
It's a good one. It's a good
And
place to
she's
start.
76. I knew that was a lot for her to say.
Ruth was
And-
102.
And then she even said, and I don't know if it's flat or round. I don't know. She has trouble following a lot of the stuff. She tried listening to a few shows.
Yeah, it's tough. Everybody listening to the show has a better ability to critical thinking than normies out there still stuck in the matrix. And we can't even all follow it. It's like, I'm honest. What Austin was showing before, I really would have to sit down and listen to that a couple times to grasp it. You definitely grasp it better than I do. And Austin, he's just an anomaly. So, but it's okay. It's okay because we're all learning. I was trying to explain something to this young kid today on the live I was on, and he literally just couldn't follow. I was trying to talk about the size of the sun versus the size of Polaris, and his mind I could hear it blank out. I could see it. He just blanked out and just went back to globe programming. And that's our biggest challenge. It's not finding proofs. We have too many proofs. Zach, you know what the best flat earth proof is? Every single one of them, if you actually look at it. Every single one is the best.
Yeah, because, they all wake people up.
Yeah, they're all globe killers if you just follow through, think critically, put down your ego, and just look at it. And once you let one in, the rest come flowing right by you. I've been getting a lot of, I'll tell you what's changed. I've been getting a lot of emails, I'm going to think about it, a real lot of people saying, hey, you woke me up, something woke me up, and I'm there, except, I got one thing that's holding me back. I think the earth is flat, but this is the one thing, and a lot of them are, a large majority of them are the long distance southern flights. And, but what I'm saying is they're coming. They're not coming and going, oh, flat earth is stupid because of this one thing. They're coming and saying, I'm almost there. Can you help me get by this one thing? So that's what's changed. I'm getting a lot of people doing that. A lot of people.
Yeah, and we were all there, right?
Yeah.
Always stuck on this one little thing. Well, maybe all that other stuff is just, maybe it is refraction or this or that. I was trying to come up with anything to be like, I am not one of these crazy people.
Yeah. The biggest problem that people are having are the southern flights, which is super easy. Planes are going faster, winds are going faster. And if you actually look at the data, it actually proves flat earth, because with those wind speeds and those plane speeds, a plane can't fly that slow to be on a globe. Okay. I mean, if you really look at it, everything proves flat earth. And the other one was plane flights and, oh no, I can't remember. That was the big one. And the sun setting, because the horizon, is always below your eyes, which isn't true. The horizon is always thousands of feet above your eyes, and even a lot of flat earthers don't fully understand that yet. The thing with the quarter on the table.
Yeah.
But the standing quarter, they move it away, and the Globers will go, look, it's the camera's below the table. They're right. The camera is below the table. And when they zoom in, they open up the iris. So the iris actually gets bigger and it's above the table. And you could bring the quarter back into view. Right now, that's interesting. And the Globers have a point that, you're still below the table. But when you look across, even on the clearest of days, and you're looking far into the distance, especially on the clearest of days where you can see really far, that atmosphere, let's say the atmosphere is 20,000 feet. You know, what height are clouds at? 10,000 feet?
Yeah, they get down
Okay.
that low.
So let's take 10,000 feet of the thickest air with no clouds, doesn't matter. Over 30, 40, 50, 100 miles, it compresses to your apparent eyesight, eye height, but it's really 10,000 feet above your eyesight, and it becomes opaque. And anything above that just goes beyond it, like somebody on the other side of a fence. You know, if you're sitting on the ground and there's a 5-foot fence, you know, maybe 20 feet from you, and somebody's talking to you over it, and you can see them from the chest up, they walk away, their head's going to disappear from the bottom up, right? When that's 20, 30 miles away from you, everything looks like it's at eye level, and the celestial object just gets cut off from the bottom up. The horizon appears to rise to eye level, but it's always thousands of feet above your eyes. That's the true statement.
I like that.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Beartooth 2000 over on Rumble. This might be our first Rumble super chat. $5 says, thanks for waking me up, guys. No TV in my house since 2020. The whole C
Nice.
word thing opened my eyes, found you all, changed my life.
What's the C word?
Cough. Holocaust. Sorry about that. We had a little baby drama.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby drama.
Yeah.
It's expected.
I heard what you were saying. This is funny because I'm getting a lot more of those messages too, where people are like, so I'm pretty much a flat earther. I just need you to help me answer this. I'm getting a lot of those messages recently.
When people ask about the sunset, I can't walk everybody through. I just say, you know, on the app, go to where does the sun go? They do that. They come back. They're like, thank you very much. I'm there. I'm in. I'm done. So, you know, whatever you have to send people, you know, send them the videos from your app. You know, send them the videos, anything you have on it, and they're there. So people are more willing to accept it right now, and it's happening faster and faster. I see it. All right, I see it. The flat earthers are converting at Moore's law. It's just, I can see it. It's speeding up faster and faster and faster. So I don't know how much longer it can go before it breaks the dam.
And if they don't want to use the app, you use the app, like Dave said.
Yeah,
go find those
send them the
videos
video.
that are impossible to find. If you try to search for them, they're all on Dave's app. Just go find them and send them.
Where does the sun go? Find your favorite video or send them the whole playlist right in there. Open it up, share, send, bam, they got it. Say, hey, please watch these videos. That's it. It's send them whatever will answer their question, and if you take the time and answer their question the best that you can, they're all coming over. And then when you do that, they're going to do it, and it just gets bigger and bigger. Nobody leaves flat Earth.
Yeah, like here's one right here. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions regarding flat Earth. How does Starlink work in the flat Earth model? And like, could they be balloons? If you try, or if you can explain a mechanism for how this works, I'm a flat earther. It's like the last thing holding me back. Here's another one. I just got a message that said, someone just messaged me, finally broke my programming completely today. Thanks to you, bro. Much love.
Beautiful. Isn't that the best?
Awesome.
Isn't that why you do it? That's why we do it.
Yeah.
That's what keeps me going.
Yeah, it's crazy because almost all of them now are just like something to this effect, some rendition of, so, you know, I've been watching a lot of your guys' content, and I'm not going to lie, it all makes so much sense, and I definitely don't believe this story that we're being told. I just can't figure out this. Can you tell me what it is? Like, I get that all the time now.
Yeah, much more than before. So that is an amazing, incredibly encouraging sign. Incredibly encouraging. Boys, thanks for having me. I have to go somewhere.
Thank you so much for dropping in, Dave.
And I'm not going to tell you where I'm going until later.
Okay.
All right. All right. Thanks so much. Have a good show.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on, bro.
Bye.
David Weiss, folks. Creator of
And
the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app by Blue Water Bay. Only $2.99. If you pay more than that, they're asking more than that. That is not David's app. Don't send him a message saying his app sucks. That's not the one. Make sure it's by Blue Water Bay.
so, also on this idea of mainstream moving towards electric gravity, here we have a paper titled literally The Electromagnetic Nature of Gravitation. And,
No beating around the bush there, huh?
and what people always they love to try to do is discredit the source. Right? Because like a genetic fallacy. It's called a genetic fallacy, dismissing the argument based on the source. It's just stupid. Like, meth head, homeless caveman chugging Jameson can still be right about something. It doesn't actually matter who it is. Like, something doesn't become untrue. What if that person says grass is green? Oh, now grass can't be green because he said
Can't
it?
be it. Can't be. We can't take that person's word for it.
Yeah, you see how stupid that argument is? It's the same thing as appealing to authority. It's also as stupid as that, because it's like, what about when the authorities disagree? Something can't be true because an authority said it. Authorities disagree.
It's
And
ad hominem your source.
yeah, so it's basically this. It's also implying a worldview that appeals to authority when you start to discredit someone because of the source. Same thing with credentials, right? Where they're like, "Oh, you don't have the proper credentials to discuss this." When an argument is dismissed or evidence is dismissed, not based on the actual argument or evidence itself, but the fact that the person doesn't have a certain set of credentials. So, anyway, this guy does have the credentials, and it's just not being published in in a publication that reaches their arbitrary standard, right? And this is obviously because this totally like just blows the lid off the mainstream model if true. So of course they don't publish it. None of them rebut the math. I've sent this to so many people that tried to claim that it can't be true or whatever. And I'm like, okay, debunk it. Show me what's wrong with the math. Show me what's wrong with what he's saying. And one person was like, see, the gravity approximation's wrong. And then what they did was they looked into Big G and the more updated values, and it's absolutely not wrong. And they were they were completely wrong. And then instead of being like, oh wow, the only thing I could come up with actually wasn't true, they just like moved to something else or just ignore it or whatever.
Yeah, and that's really all they can do at that point. You kind of put them up into a corner. You know, when the education system, you know, higher academia is saying these things, and it's just flat out exactly what we've been saying for the last, you know, however many years now, 8 years, that you either need to admit it and move on. It's not like you can't sit and argue about other things. This isn't the end all be all, right? It definitely pushes towards flat earth being a greater possibility now, because we don't need the magic of gravity to hold us down onto the earth. But I mean, this isn't a secret. This is what the math dictates. If they actually truly comprehended what the equations were saying, this wouldn't even be up for debate. That's the saddest part about it to me. You have all these educated people, right, that went and took the test and got a good enough score to get a piece of paper and don't care about it really at all, except for having that little piece of paper and the ego that comes with it. But they never took time to comprehend what the equation really meant. They memorized the equation. You know, they could probably still spit it out to you right now. But do they even comprehend what the equation is actually saying? Walter Lewin, the teacher we were watching earlier, He said, if you only know the equation, you know nothing. One of my favorite quotes of his. And that was so, I mean, you could tell by the way he taught, he wanted his students to comprehend beyond the equation, to see the beauty of how all of this works and how it's all interacting with each other. You know, everything is at all times without us even knowing it. There's a beautiful dance happening around you at all times. And he wants to share that with his students. Yeah, an amazing teacher. If you're getting into the upper educations of, you know, physics and stuff like that with your children, I would recommend going to him. Just even if you don't, it's above their head to watch, just watch how he teaches and how he interacts with the students. And when he's doing certain things, he'll make jokes and stuff like that to make sure that that stuff sticks in there, something that they can remember to go along with that knowledge. Yeah, it really helps. There's so much to teaching. I'm learning. It's not just going up there and saying stuff. It doesn't work like that. You really want to grab the attention of your audience so they can obtain some of that knowledge. It just doesn't go in one ear and out the other. Yeah, and there's plenty of other good teachers out there too. Just like Walter Lewin, I'm finding them on all types of streaming platforms. I've been searching around Rumble a little bit just to see what it's like. But yeah, there's great physics teachers, high school physics teachers that are sharing their lectures and stuff like that. And some of them are really good. And then some of them are really boring and blah, and it's just a guy in front of a whiteboard talking in a monotone voice like this and writing the equation out and in both, you know. But then some of them are really good. So yeah, if you are or just wanting to learn, go find a good teacher. It helps. It really does. Because just sitting there and reading the stuff, it's next level physics. This is, you know, more advanced stuff. And if you don't know the vocabulary, it's kind of like reading another language. You need a scientific dictionary there with you.
Yeah, like a big thing is people need to just learn some terms that they're not familiar with.
Learn a new one, a new term every week, at least, if not every day. If you can't do one every day, just learn a new term, and then throughout the week, go back and, you know, write it down, make a list. But learn a lot of these terms. It's important because that's how it's explained. To understand the phenomena, you're gonna have to learn a few new words. It's just how it works. Yeah,
Sorry.
a good teacher is worth their weight in gold, in my opinion.
Yeah, check this out. The mass charge equivalence and the electromagnetic nature of the gravitation constant big G imply the equivalence of Newton's gravitational law to Coulomb's electrostatic law. In fact, the well-known Newton's gravitational potential between two particles I and J with respective masses separated by a certain distance writes like this. So note also that when considering the algebraic signs of charges and not their absolute values as usually, a minus sign has to be considered in Coulomb's law and the electrostatic theory for the resulting positive potential to characterize attraction. So obviously this right here, the mass charge equivalence and electromagnetic nature of the gravitation constant big G implied the equivalence of Newton's gravitation law to Coulomb's electrostatic law.
When was this one from?
A couple years ago.
Yeah, I saw one from 2017 that was saying a lot of the same stuff right here.
This is 2022.
Wow. And then that's what I love about these guys. They go and put all the math in there for all the nerds. Pure electromagnetic terms.
It's so funny. It's like Electromagnetic nature of gravitational constant. Here it is, right? So, Planck's length, which is considered the shortest possible wavelength for a single photon, beyond which the electromagnetic energy density transforms to a black hole. So this guy is fully in their paradigm, trying to save it, talking about electromagnetism. A gravitational constant, big G, is expressed exactly through the elementary charge E and the electromagnetic vacuum constants. So he's actually integrating the fact that we can measure certain electromagnetic variables or output in a vacuum chamber. And, obviously the mainstream just basically says that's like, something we don't fully understand. And it's a bunch of different fields that aren't fields, but they're like fields and whatever. So, yeah. So I'm just more making the bigger point here, which is that the mainstream is moving over towards this. This is a paper from 2017. I wonder if this is what we're talking about. Is gravity an electrical phenomena? So the latest issue of Concepts in Global Tectonics, that's a great name, has been published, and in the letters section, Bruce Laybourne notes a linkage between gravity anomalies and lightning and earthquakes. And I suspect volcanic activity. But just how gravity could be linked to lightning seems problematic unless our understanding of gravity is faulty and that gravity is instead some sort of electrical phenomena. Gravity being electrical is not a new idea, and in this whatever field data I collected from a drilling operation 2009 supports the idea it's electrical in nature. And that website's no longer available. Shocker.
Shocker.
So yeah, and then of course here we have Feynman talking about the characterizations of force, right? And of course, what do you end up finding out? Like electricity and electric forces are the number one, most prominent, most powerful, ever-present variable. What a shocker. See here, because it's like, I just want to elucidate the point here, right? Like, it's the elephant in the room here at this point. Oh, that's not the one. And honestly, this is the one that's like, I've sent this to so many people. No one can rebut it. It's from within their own paradigm. No one can rebut it. So funny. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's very obvious that's where we're going right now.
Yeah, it's definitely shifting in that direction. You're seeing a lot more papers like these popping up. It's time. A lot of these older people, like you were saying, it's like you have to just wait for them to be, maybe not die, but just leave academia to where they're no longer teaching. And then, because that's got to be pressure too. Your student at one point that you were teaching, that was teaching all your stuff, now comes up with a new idea or would like to start saying this other idea instead of the one that, your boss lives by. You're going to keep, if you want your job, you're going to keep teaching what your boss wants to hear. So yeah, it may just be a waiting game. It's definitely coming out though.
I mean, they're coming out saying that gravity there may be massless gravity, bro.
Massless gravity. Yeah, we struggle and fail to forge a link between gravitation and electromagnetism. Really?
Yeah. This is just physics stock exchange, but there are a lot of accredited sources on there. So yeah, I mean, anyway, I find it interesting, right? Because we know that it is magnetic, and the elephant in the room here is that that's going to propose major problems for their cosmology. And that's why in that guy's paper, he addresses all the actual variables. He's like, oh, look, the phenomena being called gravity is basically hijacking the electric phenomena. Everything's intrinsically electric, and we can actually show that everything has a fundamental elementary charge, and even neutrons are comprised of fractional elementary charges. So there's literally nothing that isn't electric. People will be like, what about neutrons? And before you even get into the like, well, what is a neutron, and you reifying concepts or whatever, it's like neutrons in your own model are made up of quarks, and these different versions of quarks have fractional elementary charges. So even the quarks that make up the neutron, it's all electric. There's difference in no charge and no net charge.
Yeah, big difference.
So literally everything that exists is electric. And now if you get into, well, do we fully understand electricity? Because maybe a lot of these like misunderstandings come from our misunderstandings of the terms we're using to even have the discussion, you know?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, and then obviously we don't have to just keep going through the papers, but again though, what is also funny about all this is when you start to step back and look at the whole situation, it's well known that the current version of gravity doesn't work. So if it actually is electric or magnetic in nature, one should ask, well, why is it that that's not being interpreted or utilized? And for one, it's because it throws a whole wrench in the current model, but not just in the sense that we would have to redefine orbits and would have to, examine medium changes or plasma or eddy currents or what exactly all is going on. But it ends up spilling over into ether, which has major, major implications, as we all know. And so, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to do it. What's your take on that? How do you think they're going to do it? Because I think that kind of time is up, and that it's so obvious to anyone that's honest at all and has researched it all that relativity's got to go, and it's past time. And
Yeah, they're
obviously the
all
only
muttering
solution
it.
is electric. So
There's a lot of people out there that are muttering it, They're already saying, yes, the ether's real. We've known about it forever. We changed the name to the Higgs field back in 86, and, it's there. There's Nobel laureates coming out and saying this in public. So, yeah, I think it's the same as electricity and the downward vector, magnetism, it's all intermingled, electromagnetism, however you want to put it. It's just going to take time. We're going to have to wait for all these professors to, that have tenure to finally retire and step aside. And then all of these new ideas can start slowly, trickling their way in. It seems like that's how it's gone over time. I don't see this one going away. This isn't going to be one of those things like Tesla's idea of wireless transmission and stuff like that just kind of went to the wayside. I don't see this as that happening. This is taking roots. And these papers are just evidence of that. They're getting published. It takes a lot to get published. You can't just write a paper on whatever you want, You can, but it has to be somewhat within the mainstream paradigm. There were people that were trying to say that the Big Bang didn't happen the way that the mainstream said it was. These were astrophysicists, not flat earthers or anything like that, just trying to say that it happened a different way, and were complaining because they couldn't get published anywhere. So if this is coming out and being published, it means that, they're slowly starting to trickle it out, and it's going to be this way. It'll be known that there's electromagnetic phenomena controlling the lights in the sky. Which, if you look at it, it's kind of obvious when you start looking at the beauty in magnetic fields and how they work and how it can all be recreated. The same field lines that we see up there the planets moving in, the stars moving in. All this stuff can be explained.
Yeah, it's just even just in like a simple, intuitive way. You can just look at the geometry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let me go ahead and shout out a couple people on Ko-fi. So Dakota, thank you for still being a level 4 Globebusters member, a monthly member. Shout out to you.
Much love.
And Liz, the Iron Maiden, thank you for the $10. Much love. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Liz.
And Run Boston Bear, thank you for what each of you do. Generous $50 tip. Thank you so much for the support over on Ko-fi. And we are right at a fourth of the goal. And thank you so much, Run Boston. Thank you, Liz. Much love.
Yeah, thank you all.
So I kind of hinted this earlier, right? But people are moving towards this idea, like we know dark matter's wrong, relativity's wrong, dark matter's wrong. They're moving away from it, and that's what modified Newtonian dynamics is. And you have all these different versions of it. Then you have these people proposing the electromagnetic nature of gravity, and clearly relativity's wrong. And tons of people are finally just like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I like. Let's just screw it. It's too obvious that it's not true, right? Because they're intimidated. They're not going to get funding. Like they'll give you millions and millions of dollars to research dark matter and dark energy. But you call out the obvious truth that doesn't exist, and then much less do you really go against relativity and the mainstream understanding of gravity, or you start to point out things that have major implications and cosmological implications. You just won't be published anywhere. You'll be called a quack. You can have a 20, 30 year illustrious career, and then all of a sudden, right, you're a quack overnight if you dare question, if you don't toe the party line. This is not science.
It's a cult. It's a cult.
Exactly what it is. So I want to let this guy kind of break down his position here, and watch what he says. So he's in this modified Newtonian dynamic camp, but I just want to point out that once again we're starting to see that mainstream quote unquote science is inching towards electrogravity, or a complete replacement of the current version of gravity that will then have implications, electric implications, and even etheric implications. So just flat earthers are sitting here, been right for many years at this point, and we're just sitting here like, duh. When it happens, they're going to try to find a way to exclude this entire group that's been labeled dissident, that's been saying it the whole time. They're going to try to exclude us as if, no, actually, yeah, what you were saying was right, but no, that's not what you were really saying. What they're saying is not what you were saying, and we knew it the whole time, or whatever. Right, which right now everyone acts like they know exactly what gravity is, and it's a proven fact, and that whatever you're saying can't be true based solely on the fact that you aren't integrating mass attracting mass. And the reality is that doesn't work, and it's well known. So let's check out. You can watch this, guys.
Yeah,
you can break it down. So this is Pavel Kropa, a professor of astrophysics in Australia.
And then we can apply, instead of Newton plus dark matter, because it's all non-relativistic, we apply Milgromian gravity without dark matter and study the structures which form. And the calculations which we've done show that what we at the moment.
And what about dark matter, to go from particle physics now to cosmology? It's an entity that's postulated by cosmologists in order to make sense of observations that would otherwise conflict with general relativity and some other theoretical claims that cosmologists operate under, the so-called standard model of cosmology. So a lot of...
All right, let's bring that back, right? So when we point out, oh, actually, relativity has been disproven already. It's already been debunked. It doesn't work. And that's why they had to propose dark matter. It's just to try to keep relativity alive. And they still can't even define it. It just something has to be there to fix the problem. So it's just a mathematical fix. People say that's not true. We know dark matter exists and all this stuff. It's like, how? Because we know that something else has to be there. How do you know that? And then they really don't know the answer, but the answer is pretty simple. It's, well, if you assume relativity, it's this much off. So if you assume that relativity is true, you absolutely assume, no questions asked, it has to be true in the gospel, then you now have to believe and assume that there must be something magical like dark matter that also exists because relativity doesn't work. So don't take it from me, take it from these people. That way you can't discredit it based on the source, right? This is exactly what it is. This is how it works. And so that's what dark matter is. That's literally why it's proposed. So I just want to run it back so everyone can really hear why dark matter is even a thing.
Have a totally different theoretical description. Of course, we don't know whether this exists. Maybe it exists. We just don't know at the moment.
And what about dark matter, to go from particle physics now to cosmology? It's an entity that's postulated by cosmologists in order to make sense of observations that would otherwise conflict with general relativity and some other theoretical claims that cosmologists operate under, the so-called standard model of cosmology. So a lot of people are pretty convinced that dark matter does in fact exist. Are you skeptical of that statement for the same reasons you are for the Higgs boson statement of existence, or are there other reasons that come into this?
Yes, no, I wouldn't say I'm skeptical. I would say that the existence of dark matter, cold dark matter particles, has been falsified with more than 5 sigma confidence. So it's not there. In fact, it's much more than 5 sigma. So now
5 sigma.
Which
Can you
means,
tell us what 5 sigma is for those
yes.
who don't remember their statistics?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so imagine you observe an apple falling down from a tree, right? And you see that for the first time, and you say, that's interesting. Why doesn't it fly up or go sideways? Right? So you do another observation, and again the apple falls down. But you wouldn't at that point say it's a law that it always falls down, because 2 observations don't really make the decision, right? And it's been established that you've completely lost confidence if you have to do this 2 million times. That's the sort of observation. So you observe 2 million experiments of the falling of apple which detaches from the tree, and if in every single case it always falls down following the same description of how it gets fast as it falls, at that point you would say you have the 5 sigma confidence. Which means that the probability that the apple will not fall down has become negligibly small. You just don't want to entertain that idea anymore because it will absolutely not be economic.
So going back to dark matter,
And specifically, it's like 99.9999%.
Yeah, he's saying pretty much absolutely, almost without any doubt. You know?
Yeah. That dark matter doesn't exist.
Yeah.
what makes you believe that dark matter?
It's a hostile witness. This is an astrophysics professor, many different awards. Spends his whole life believing and trying to prop up and fix and defend and build upon the current model that's accepted. It's a hostile witness.
And has been disproven with such high confidence.
Because we've done, since 25 years, we are studying the properties of galaxies, and we've put a lot of emphasis into understanding how galaxies function. So we means myself and the collaborators I have in many countries. And there are a few key experiments. You can do experiments in the sense of the theory making very clear, hard predictions, the dark matter theory, and then we can test that against the observations. And one particularly strong prediction is that if you have galaxies orbiting other galaxies and they are moving around in the dark matter halo, so every galaxy has this huge dark matter halo, and if it's moving around this dark matter halo, it will be suffering, it will be losing kinetic energies, it will be getting slower and falling towards the center of the other galaxy and merge. So this is called the dynamic of friction. It's the same as if you have a pot of honey and you put a marble into the honey, it will not accelerate downwards, but it will slowly sink. Yeah? Although if you have the same pot without honey, the ball would just fall down quickly. In the honey, it will sink slowly. So that is basically the same thing happens in a dark matter halo. A galaxy enters this dark matter halo and it slowly sinks down. It doesn't accelerate fast as it should if there were no dark matter halo. So we've tested this observationally, and the effect of the slowing down is not there, with that type of confidence. And so the galaxies are encountering each other far too rapidly. And a case in point is the Large Magellanic Clouds, which is just now racing past our Milky Way, very close to the Milky Way actually, and it's far too fast. So and the small energy clouds too.
So this was a prediction that was made by the claim that dark matter exists, and it's been.
And let me like break this down, because this is what we always say. It's like this guy's just talking about pseudoscience within this crazy world that they believe in. That while that's true to an extent, right? Because galaxies, what are called galaxies, are real observations. You can observe them. You can try to see what they do, etc. But this is what people need to understand: is though they have so many different layers of BS, right, where they just try their best to make their worldview unfalsifiable. That's what they do. They make it as unfalsifiable as possible, and then they have the audacity to claim it's science. Now that it's gotten to such an extent that even they can't do that, with the free reign to literally make up anything that keeps it alive, right? Like you'll be given funding and notoriety and awards and prizes. Just keep it alive. Come up with anything. You don't have to have actual evidence, any science. Just come up with any idea at all whatsoever to keep it alive. Even that is now starting to crumble. And the reason that that's important, because people will say, why would I care what these people are saying about all this pseudoscience? The reason it's important, and by the way, the observation he's discussing, it's just an observation that you make, right? The pseudoscience is all the interpretations, the claimed theories, claimed causes, and stuff that they make up about what it is, how it works, how far away it is, what it is within, all that. The reason it's important, though, if it gets to the point where they just have to throw their hands up and they have to go back to the drawing board, because even they couldn't just make it unfalsifiable enough anymore, like it actually still slipped out and was just overtly falsifiable. Once they go back to the drawing board and start having to acknowledge that what is being called gravity, even locally, could actually just be electric in nature, could be magneto-reactive in nature, the whole house of cards collapses. And now, boom, what do you have? You have this cosmology over here of quote-unquote flat earthers who have been saying it the whole time, who have only been strictly addressing what we can actually verify, like actual evidence, and we can actually do experiments, and we can manipulate the electric field, we can change the vector and direction of things, we know everything's electric, we can measure the Earth's surface, we can actually do tests to prove the Earth is not moving. The side that is addressing what can actually be empirically verified. Now the mainstream side that has all this juice and all this power and funding and the benefit of censoring dissident views has now collapsed, and it can no longer be hidden that our side is correct. That's why this is still important. It's still important even from our perspective, our goals, our aim, to open up the conversation for honest intellectual discourse, and for it to stop being misrepresented, and for us to be censored and be dismissed as some fringe crazy people that deny science, right? Once you cross over past that barrier, there's no going back. It's over. It's completely over.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because now, these physicists, these people in academia that are honest, good people, are now seeing that things are being switched. And that's got to throw up a big red flag to all of them. If they truly care about their job and the understanding of their world and things like that. And there's a lot of good scientists out there, that were just taught a certain way. And this is going to open up so many new avenues for you guys, people having conversations and stuff. Those people that wouldn't dare have a conversation with you before, just because the idea of speaking to a flat earther could mess with their reputation, I think you're going to see a lot more doors being open in academia.
Well, yeah, it's like this super pretentious cover that they have is dissolving. And it's like, for example, like here in the chat, Austin believes in galaxies now. It's like, it doesn't require belief to take a giant telescope and look into the sky and see that things spin around that people call galaxies. I don't have to believe in anything. You can look in the sky. Would you call acknowledging that stars exist a belief? Is acknowledging that the sun exists a belief? No.
It's an observation.
Exactly. Now, when you start claiming what the sun is and what it's made of and exactly how it all works and what the stars are and how far away they are and what they're doing and how big they are and what mass they are and what causes them to move and what planets are and what galaxies are, now you're getting into beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are absolutely lights in the sky that we see moving. And actually, when adding RGB filters, which is a proper way to actually look at things, so you can take a black and white photo and you can properly layer RGB filters and you can make it colored and you can go look at it in person and find out, oh, that is the proper color of that building, right? Based on the way that the frequency of light works, you can use RGB filters. Now, they mess with them a lot and they run them through computer programs. They try to make them look really, really pretty. The sky is just really pretty, though. And this is a huge disconnect of trust that's happened with flat earthers, where they've never looked into what I just talked about, but they're so sure it's all 100% fake, and now they're going as far as to try to like, oh, Austin's like believes in stuff that's not real. What in the world? He's a pseudoscience. Like, you should look into things before saying stuff like galaxies don't exist, right? Like, yeah, what they say galaxies are, and the way that they define them, and the claims that they make about them, there's no evidence for that at all whatsoever. And their model can't exist, and it's basically Narnia. And sure, in that sense, it doesn't exist. The phenomena exists. The observational phenomena absolutely does exist. So you're doing our side a huge disservice to not only deny that there are certain astronomical observations that really exist, but to actually arrogantly mock someone that discusses them or points to them. It's such a bad look. Such a bad look. So
Yeah, agreed.
I hope that people will actually listen to that, because it's just like nauseating, to be honest. And then there's another quote here. It's like a PhD invoking misspelled galaxies inside a psychosis of space. Asterisk, a PhD who believes he is on a ball. Yeah, but this is the thing, right? You can't just discredit the specific argument based on the source. We just covered that, right? Like, you don't like that when people do that to flat earthers. It's fallacious regardless of who's doing it to who.
Mm-hmm.
Like, someone that's completely brainwashed and believes in evolution, an atheist that believes in evolution, believes the earth is 4.65 billion years old, and believes the edge of the universe is 46 billion years old, and believes there's a giant ever-expanding universe of nothingness, that person can still be correct about things. That person can still actually pull out a telescope and look at the sky and say, hey, look, I saw this, and it can be a real observation. You can't discredit anything they say. It has to be specific to what's being discussed, the evidence, etc. So whenever they look and they within their model, they're now having some people bold enough to say, look, this model isn't true. This belief that people are claiming is science, but it's actually just theories that people made up about the sky. We now know, not only was it never proven, we now know it isn't true definitively. It's disproven. So why would you just dismiss anything he says because he says the word galaxy? You have some like weird visceral reaction to the word galaxy, right? I just don't think that is
a lot of people have to work on that. I mean, and like when people say gravity, people, it's like, no, you know what they're talking about. Explain it to them in a way like you're having a conversation. Yeah, it's almost like people get big-headed themselves when they figure this out too. When they learn about flat Earth and how almost everybody I know throughout my whole life has been fooled by this, including myself. So nobody is got a right, really, in my opinion, to be on a high horse because they learned it first. We were all fooled, and share that information with a little bit of class. Be more understanding of, especially those of us who've been at it for going on 10 years now almost.
Just don't give this other side ammunition to try to build up this caricature of what flat Earth means, right? Where, like, if you just like baselessly deny things altogether, like I've heard people say Starlinks don't exist, and it's like, you can go in your backyard and watch the lights that people are claiming are Starlinks cross over. Now, are they what they say they are? Maybe not, but to just say that they don't exist at all, it's completely made up, that just is a huge disservice to our side. They absolutely, like, the lights in the sky people are calling Starlinks absolutely exist. I've seen them many times, So this is an example. It's like, also, you don't need to just assume definitively that they're all balloons, even, because we don't necessarily know that. Like, I don't know. I won't have to get into that, which actually, if you look at the physics, it just uses a stationary Earth with a rotating universe. I don't know what is or isn't up there, but my point is that you don't want to be like the very enemy that we're having to combat. You don't want to become this like pretentious, arrogant, derogatory side that just dismisses all kinds of things, and then things that can even be truly verified because you haven't looked into them. And so then someone can it's unfair, right? But if just one little situation like that, someone's going to take it and blow it up. They're going to take that one piece and they're going to like slap it all over the idea of flat Earth. And this is why some of these anti-flat Earthers, they'll go through Facebook and they'll find someone that's doing stuff like that, and they'll pull them out and pull them on their channel to do a debate so they can create this version of flat Earth to the world, right? That just comes off as just like gross reality denial or whatever.
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes sense.
Don't give them the ammunition. Exactly.
Yeah, because we have nothing to be afraid of or shy away from, right? Like anything that can be observed, like it has to be observed on a stationary plane. That's enclosed. It doesn't matter what we observe. There's nothing that we observe that we should be afraid of or need to deny. It doesn't matter what it is. No matter what it is. Someone says, "How's this work?" I don't know, but it does, because the Earth measures flat and it's not moving. So it does work on a flat Earth.
When I bent still water, oh my goodness, I had people, "Oh, you're going back to the globe, this and that." No. But this is how this place works. Everything is electrostatic and adheres to the electric field. Matter lies 90 degrees perpendicular to the electric field. That's just how it works. And I wanted to share that with people. Look, hey, we can bend water. It's possible if you bend the field lines. And people flipped out. I thought they'd be excited. Yeah, don't fear the truth. It's not something we need to be scared of.
Yeah, I know I'm like coming off of maybe aggressive. I don't want to sound aggressive, but like, I guess what I'm just trying to say is it's just like so frustrating to watch people like shoot themselves in their own foot. Like, we shouldn't, everyone's entitled to do whatever they want to, but in my opinion, what like got me super interested in this was trying to really figure out what's going on, right? And then I discovered like all the lies involved in like removing the ether and removing the true understanding of magnetism, electricity, electrical field theory, and then now they have this ridiculous like pseudoscience that they push on everyone. They stole all Tesla's work and all this stuff, where it's like, wait, no, screw them. They don't get to tell us what's going on. Let's figure out what's really going on the best that we can. And it was like this thirst for knowledge and understanding that got me super interested in flat Earth in the first place, right? Wanting to actually know what is the true nature of this Earth, what is really going on. And all I've ever seen are these like cartoony CGI images and claims from NASA and space agencies and mainstream. And so it's easy to just get disillusioned and throw it all out, when the truth is, what's above us is incredibly beautiful, and you can go look at the stars without star pollution. It's like mind-blowing and incredible. And when we do look through giant telescopes, we see that there's so much out there. It just seems to be way closer than they said it is. And there's like all kinds of spiral, rotational, flower of life geometry, all in this perfect little system, And so, like, we shouldn't allow them the power to like cause us to just turn away from all of it and not look up at all, because they bastardize looking up and they don't ever want you to look at the ground we're discussing. And they've made up stories about what's in the sky and act like they can prove what the ground is and ignore the proof of what the ground is. That doesn't mean you shouldn't look up, because whoever created this place clearly created the most beautiful, incredible light show ever, so that you can see it.
Yeah. Whoever created it wanted you to look up. They did. It's obvious. Yeah,
so, and obviously I don't know if I use the word trigger, but it's like when people say stuff like, "Oh, Austin believes in galaxies now," it's like, dude, bro, I've been using the word galaxy for 5 years. So I like, yeah. I think that phenomenon is real, and you can just observe it. And dude, what's even crazier is it's like all the observations are just points for us. They just strengthen our position, like every time. It's like they made up all these fairy tale pseudoscientific claims, and when you actually look at it, it doesn't work at all. It's like they claim that gravity is the bending and warping of space time based on mass, and they look up and there's like 1% of the mass they need, and it's like, oh, that's not what that is, bro. That's moving just like the center of a magnetic field. Now I don't know what it is, but it's not what they're saying, and they don't get to have rights to the phenomena that we see. So, for example, like from a geocentric position, what ends up happening if you actually consider the Earth just to be stationary and everything moving around it, then the distant galaxies complete a circular rotation once a year. So it's like everything has this annual cycle that all works together, even deep into space, which makes no sense in their paradigm, right? Because we're supposedly a ball that's tilted, wobbling, spinning around the sun, that's then spinning around the Milky Way galaxy, that's flying through space, and there's all these different galaxies. And so when we look way out, we just see all kinds of stuff. But for some reason, the stuff that's supposedly super, super far away, it also just seems to care about our annual cycle and just moves with it and completes a cycle in the same time frame. Everything is based on the same year and sidereal rotation that we have. It's because everything's moving around us, So this stuff is actually, and it's also, I'll say this one last thing and I'll kind of stop like lecturing, I guess, but it's like the next thing is, this always comes down to the same thing. Is your goal to try to help reach people or to wake people up and to like really make a change where we can shift the mainstream like psychosis of man away from this delusion and just help show them the beauty of this realm and the truth? Or is it just to be right and you can be able to say, I'm right, and like kind of mock other people, which is what happens to us, right? And why would we want to do that to other people? And where it's like showing someone that, hey, look, actually, if you look at it from a stationary position, all this makes more sense. If you actually look at what they're calling galaxies, look at it, it doesn't work. And, you didn't know that. That may be just enough to actually kind of snap someone out of it, wake them up to start looking into things. Then someone will say to me, it's like, we don't need anything other than that water lays flat. And I'm like, dude, just saying that water lays flat isn't going to wake up everyone. And so, like, what's your objective here, right? Is your objective to try to wake up as many people as you can or not? But all right, anyway, preaching over. We got another generous donation on Ko-fi. Dakota Dunn, thank you so much. Thanks, gentlemen, for another informative stream. As always, I appreciate your time sharing what you know. Take care and have a great week. Thank you so much. Very generous, $50 on Ko-fi. Got us over 50%.
Nice. Thank you, Dakota.
Yeah, Dakota, thank you, brother. All right, we can play a little bit more of this. He's just laying out how, like, within their own paradigm, this idea of dark matter has been definitively disproven, so has their version of gravity, and he's basically been excommunicated for it.
Falsifying
absolutely.
view by observation. So why do people still, in your view, cling on to this idea of dark matter?
Well, that's an interesting sociological problem which one would like to understand because it has no rational basis. It is non-rational, and it's probably related to sociological pressures in the community. So when students come into the research,
sociological pressures
project
in the community. That's it right there.
Yep.
Like we were saying earlier, if your boss is saying that it's this way, and he's head of the department or whatever, and he wants you to teach it this way, but you think it's this way, which way do you think that person is gonna teach it? Probably the way their boss wants them to, because they're going to get in trouble or, just the social pressures of it all. Like this guy, blackballed, exiled from the community. That's a cult. That's how cults work. If you don't go along, you get exiled. There is no arguing about this kind of stuff. Yeah, poor guy.
I know. And that's why it's like, even though he's kind of lost in the sauce, it's like if we jump in with the rest of his own colleagues that are jumping on him, you're going to get way less people doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we need more people doing what he's doing. Even though, like, he, assuredly isn't a flat earther, probably even believes we're flying through space or whatever. In his little niche that he's always focusing on, because he just assumes those things, doesn't really look into it, assumes them to be true. He's bold enough to put all of these credentials and all of his reputation on the line to point out, no one's saying it, everyone's scared to say it, but it's been disproven. Dark matter isn't real. Relativity isn't real. Gravity isn't real. The way that it's been defined, this model isn't true. It isn't working. It's been disproven. We need more people from within saying that, because what they try to run with is this narrative that it's like the flat earthers and then the science, right? And we're just on our own. We're denying science. That's not true at all. The people within this quote unquote science, which isn't science, it's scientism, are now like reluctantly trying to speak out and still being attacked from their own people. So yeah, like we should like applaud him for that aspect of what he's doing.
Research project. They are, for one thing, attracted by the interesting ideas and possibility of doing research, and the other by how great the group looks like they would like to join. So it's tribal thinking, and that pulls a lot of young people into an established thinking, because just that's where they can have a career, that's where the funding is, that's where the leaders of the field are famous, they get prizes. And that's a self-strengthening system in a scientific establishment which relies on competition for funding. And that is simply, and I think that's the whole fallacy of the situation, that comes from American United States. This concept of competition for funding in the sciences is the most stupid idea you could have even thought up, because that's absolutely not how science works. In order to discover the laws of nature, you cannot compete with anybody. You can only follow your intuition and work on that for as long as it takes to develop an idea. And maybe sometimes some ideas simply don't get developed into new theories or not successful theories. But that's just what you have to do. You cannot have scientists competing for funding in order to improve our understanding of nature. That's just the most stupid idea ever brought up in terms of our civilization. You can do that in economics. You get a better product, and that will be bought, and then you invest into that, but not in science. Absolutely not. Science is art. A scientist, a brilliant scientist, paints a picture, which is the theory. For that, they sometimes have to invent their own tools, like Newton had to invent the mathematics to actually do the unification, which he did falling apple with the motion of the moon. And that's what one has to do today. Have to allow the scientists to work creatively. And the question is, how does one sell this concept that you allow some people to be supported by the taxpayer to do that? It looks like a holiday. People just dream off. They go on a ship for 3 years and just dream up some ideas funded by the taxpayer. Right? Doesn't sound right. On the other hand, that's actually the basis of how our civilization progressed. In every single case, people always invented the new concepts, not under pressure, but because they themselves wanted to understand what's happening out there.
So I've disagree with him on quite a bit of that, but he does make a good point that it's the funding, and if you're just going to give some like bias based on the funding, then people will be like, oh yeah, dark matter's true, let me further look into it to help understand it, if you're going to give me $1 billion. And if you're going to say dark matter isn't true, then we're not going to give you even $1. Then what are you going to do? You're going to have tons of people pretending dark matter is real, and clinging on to relativity. And if you look at it, you look around heliocentrism and you move into like relativity, that's where you start to see just like atheism, depravity, degeneracy, the collapse of society, all moving proportionate to it. That's because it just really pushed this idea of like everything's relative. You can't trust anything. You can never know anything. And there is no absolute anything. That turned into moral relativism.
Yeah,
and really
there's no right or wrong
relativity
anymore. It's all, whatever.
Removed the ether, the idea of this ether, the understanding of like this metaphysical boundary or like bridge, and It's crazy. It's crazy. That's like getting rid of that nonsense is a huge deal. It's a plague to society. Getting rid of this nonsense philosophy of the Copernican principle that the Earth's not in a special or unique position and that the Earth is this tiny speck of dust that's a sphere. It's tilted, wobbling, spinning, revolving, flying through space insignificantly, tucked in a little insignificant corner, a little dusty rock that's going around an insignificant sun in an insignificant galaxy of this ever-expanding universe of nothingness that's mind-blowingly big and 46 billion light years to the visible edge, where 1 light year is 6 trillion miles. And it's just like insane. And it makes you feel so small and insignificant. It warps your mind, and it makes you think like, oh, it really props up this idea that there's this special group of people that wear lab coats that are the only ones that can know the truth. And none of that's real. None of it's real. You know, the smartest people I know, the smartest people that have made steps towards greater understanding and knowledge and innovations and technologies and inventions were autodidactic, were self-taught. They were not brainwashed by a university and then internalized it stagnantly for 50 years. That's just not how progress or truth works. So we should.
Yeah, Rick and Morty, that was one thing they got right in that show, was that school is not a place for smart people. It's just, you know, the smartest ones that come up with the greatest inventions and all that stuff, they're usually from the fringe. That rarely takes place within academia. Because academia is just teaching what they already know. They assume that they already know how everything works. So when something new comes along, academia usually fights against it, like we're seeing right now. So yeah, I think it's just going to take time. And I'm patient. I'm just glad it's changing. Things are constantly changing in a good way as it comes to people waking up and even being willing to look at new information.
Yeah, I agree big time.
It's working.
Well, I'm down to start getting ready to wrap it up if you are. Do you have anything else you want to bring up or talk about or anything?
No, I've been really just watching. I've been keeping an eye on like what's going on with the mental health in this country and the education system. And yeah, after the election, I don't think I've ever seen people react this visceral, this just downright nasty about what they're saying and the way they're trying to convey their message. It's weird. It's really weird how they've divided the country with propaganda. That's the one thing I haven't heard Trump and the cabinet talk about, all the changes that they want to make. There's, a lot of good stuff that I'm hearing. I don't believe any of it until I see it, There are some really weird ones and bad ones. I was like, I don't know about that. But the reaction we're getting from the people is the mental health in this country. And I think a lot of it has to do with the food that we're eating and being fed and all the different prescription drugs that people are being put on. Yeah, there needs to be a big change when it comes to all that kind of stuff in this country. And I hope we get to see at least some of these steps that they claim to want to be taking to go in that direction. But yeah, as far as politics goes, this is a really interesting time. It really is. And not just here in the United States, but all over the world, things are happening. And I know it's probably just all part of the show. And we're going to try it again here later, but to keep control, we're going to, keep control. They own both sides at all times. And when this side, gets rejected by the population, we went for it and it was rejected. We can't do it anymore. It's not going to work. then they come in with the White Knights to save the day and take over. And that's what I'm assuming is happening right now. I put no faith into any of these people in politics. I don't believe the revolution will be televised. I don't think it's going to work that way. I hope, that the things that they're saying, they're going to try and at least do. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been really interesting. A lot of the stuff that we've been saying for years about, the stuff that's put into the water. I don't even know what we can say on YouTube right now. But the stuff being put in the water, all the stuff that we give to our children, the stuff that's being put into our food, all of this stuff is being talked about now. And it's refreshing to hear it being said, by somebody else besides just us in these circles. The conspiracy theorist. They're actually coming out and saying all the stuff we've been saying forever. So I don't know. It's interesting times. We'll see what happens. What do you think's going to happen, Austin? Do you have any theories?
I don't know, man. I made a prediction back in the day that Trump would come back in as the hero and team up with Elon Musk, and that they would do all kinds of stuff and fully renovate the entire government and actually expose a lot of corruption. And stand up for free speech and the Second Amendment. They would do all this, and then they would throw us into like a golden age, and they get rid of the IRS, or they'd maybe get rid of the IRS, but get rid of income tax, and go at the Federal Reserve, and they would do all this stuff, but that it was actually kind of a deception in the long run to usher in a technocratic update subtly. So I don't know if I'm right about that. I would ideally not be right about that, but that is
I think you are.
Pretty interesting. I called that 4 or 5 years ago, and then now, people act like I was crazy saying that he was going to team up with Elon Musk to update the whole system, and now look where we are. So
it's part of his cabinet. Yep. Yeah, that was a good call.
We'll see. Well, cool. You got what you got coming up this week?
I'll be doing Iron Realm Media over at freeworld.fm or on the YouTubes, or I think we're even on Rumble now. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning at 5 a.m. 2 a.m. Pacific time. Sorry about that. Yeah, we get a lot of more people from across the pond being that early in the morning. But it's fun. We have a lot of fun. We have people from, all over that come and chime in. We had our buddy from South Africa, Nkululelu Duma, on Friday. And he comes in, every couple months, and he'll drop in for, a week or two when he has time. And then he'll be off again for a couple months. But it's neat getting perspectives from all around the world and what they're hearing about the U.S. and vice versa and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we have a good time over there. And then Thursday night, we'll be doing another Globebusters Tech. I believe we'll be doing part 2 of an introduction to electricity, going over another Walter Lewin lecture. People seem to enjoy it, and I love talking about it. So yeah. What do you got coming up this week, Austin?
Big podcasts that we're supposed to be finalizing. I think it'll be like Friday. Looking for the person to debate me on a really big show, so that should be announced the next day or so if we can finalize the other person. So a really big show in person. That should be cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and then.
Do you even get nervous about this stuff anymore? Is it just like second nature?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it just kind of depends. I mean, there may be like a couple seconds where I'm like, when it's about to happen, where I'm like, but every time it starts happening, I'm just like, it's no big deal. So
yeah, you got this.
Yeah. And then Middle Ground, Skull and Glober. So Monday and Wednesday, I'm gonna do a stream, kind of pulling out some of those clips from my streams like 4 years ago and showing all the stuff I said I thought would happen, and then show how much of it's happened and see. Just so people can know, because they were asking my take on the whole thing. And so I may do that this week as well. So that would be 3 shows plus the podcast on Friday. It just kind of depends on when I have to travel. So yeah, that's what I got coming up.
Awesome, man. We'll go get them. And thank
you, man. Well, cool. All right. Thank you guys for kicking it. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And yeah, basically the summary of the show is just that the mainstream is moving more and more towards like this etheric emergent property, electric gravity. Long story short, they're getting rid of relativity, and they're really starting to say, oh, we overlooked major things, and turns out maybe there's massless gravity, maybe there's electromagnetic gravity, maybe it turns out relativity is completely wrong and dark matter doesn't actually exist. In other words, this electrical field that causes you to defy gravity up above the earth, and they're making all these, they're subtly sprinkling things into the mainstream consciousness about how the entire thing that we were told is unquestionable science is actually completely wrong, like we've been saying the entire time. So that's the summary. We'll catch up with you guys next week, I believe, and that will be season 12, episode 7. So be kind to each other, don't lie to each other, open your mind because there's truth inside. Peace.
Peace.